think we're live.
Oh, really?
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mamluks podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me is my co-host, a man Mahin, Frederick Islam. How y'all doing? Thank you for joining us this evening for another episode of the Mamluks Wednesday night roundtable.
It feels empty, doesn't it?
It does. It feels so weird because we have some flakers today.
Well, Mort didn't flake. Mort has a legit reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Mort is taking care of some family stuff that, he's going to be out of commission for probably a couple weeks, I think he said.
I think so.
Yeah. So, we'll
family business.
Nothing serious. Just got, sometimes the family calls and you got to help them out. Now, the sheikh, unfortunately, just called him like, where you at, bro?
Yeah.
And then got kids, it's a bad, dude ain't showing up when, your son picks up and he's like, oh, you want to talk to my dad? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, he's sleeping. And he's like, oh, was he supposed to do it a podcast? I'm like, yeah. He's supposed to be in studio. And he lives like, it's like 20 minutes away or something. So I was like, at this point, I don't think he's waking up and driving on over here. So we were just, but.
That's okay. The sheikh gets tired. He's doing two jobs and all kinds of, well.
I don't know. But he does jobs that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So.
He's a contract for hire.
He's also parenting, unlike probably, at least definitely me. I'm like, I haven't, I saw my kids for like 10 minutes on Monday night.
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean.
I know. Well,
I don't really have to do much.
It's crazy because it just reminds me of, just recently I was thinking about new ways to earn money and stuff like that, just because you want to make sure that your future is financially stable and all that, and the prospect of poverty just is becoming terrifying because you have a family, you're taking care of things, and you're so enslaved to this mindset of being terrified of poverty that you're willing to do anything, like work every amount of hours and willing to sacrifice whatever you have. If you have like spare time that you want to give to your kids, well, you start thinking, well, how could I use that time instead to make money?
But why do you think? Because I know you've experienced in your past like times where you've been laid off.
Yeah.
Or for something like a year, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. Do you think it's because of you've experienced it and it sucked?
Yeah, well, it's that too, but I think being unemployed is very emasculating. Like you don't feel like you're living up to your meaning, or you have a purpose as a man to be a provider, and when you don't live up to that, you feel incredibly humiliated and degraded, so that's a terrifying feeling. That always makes you want to work harder. But then
how do you feel about like your significant other making more money than you?
I think it's with every couple it's different, but I just think that as long as you as a man are leading the relationship, and that the monetary value that each party is bringing in doesn't affect the relationship that a man has and a woman has in the family structure, I think it's fine. But when it becomes like, oh, because I bring more money than you, when that becomes the defining aspect of the relationship, that becomes problematic, right? I mean, why should it be that because either the husband or the wife is bringing in more money, they have more say in things? Right. I don't see how that I think that's a very dangerous way to kind of structure your relationship and have that as the kind of underpinnings of how your family's put together, because it's just a terrifying idea that you have money that's capital is actually determining the role of the relationship.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. Right. So I think it's I don't know, because I've known about openly. My wife makes significantly more than I do, right? And people ask me, but she's never like, but I think there's always phases. You know, there's when we first got married, she was in medical school and I had a job. So when you're in medical school, you make nothing, right? And I was working, and residency, I made more than she did, right? But then I also was like, listen, when we wanted to buy a house, I was like, listen, this house you want to buy, you know, I think you should be putting the most of the money into it because I can't afford this house, right, comfortably on my income, right? If that's what you want to do, then, I mean, that's on you. Then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Because especially when a lot of times guys don't necessarily care about the extras, the super large house, and I'm not saying that I know there's plenty of guys who do care about that, but in a traditional relationship, guys tend to be more frugal. They tend to be looking forward to the future. How can they save, and how can they invest their earnings, and hopefully have a good time in retirement, right? But yeah, if your wife makes more money than you and she really wants that specific home, I think that's fine.
Because I think they get a certain pleasure out of displaying the home. Like when we have people over, like my house could be a train wreck and I'll have people over. I don't really care.
Yeah,
there could be like candy wrappers all over the place. My wife is, you know, it's always like stressful when we have people over because she gets worked up.
Yeah.
Not because I do. I'm like, I could care less, right? She's like got a task and it's always going to happen. But I think where we spend money is, I think guys we tend to entertain hobbies more. I don't know if women do. I don't know if my wife has like real hobbies these days.
Well, we're supposed to be the people who give them the hobbies, because most women, when you talk to them, they don't have very interesting things that you'd care to be interested in. Most women you talk to, they have, if you're lucky, you can talk about a couple TV shows that you're interested in, like that there's some overlap with. But most girls, they're not really into the same thing that guys are, and they're looking for someone to lead that dance in that relationship where you are able to string them into different activities, and even if it's TV shows or whatever your interests are, the man is usually leading that relationship. Of course, there are some men who will follow their woman's interests and stuff, and they don't necessarily have that. I met plenty of guys who I talk to who just don't have any set of skills that they bring to the relationship, and they tend to be like, I just kind of am puzzled, like, how can anyone find you interesting? Like, there's really nothing attractive about you. I'm not talking about physical appearances and stuff. I'm just saying in terms of what you're bringing to the table other than money.
Yeah, it's not
right?
You like there's the whole Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world.
Right.
They got on the Dos Equis scale. They're on the scale of 0, because for me, you know, you hit 40 yet? Yeah. So I'll be 40 later this year, and I was growing up, and I was in Cologne. I was in Ohio last week for Eid, and I was catching up with an old friend I grew up with, like to the point where we were babies, right? And she's a photographer now. She's a smart girl. She went to Berkeley for her PhD in political science. She's always driven, and she's got a corporate job now at Chase. But she's doing photography, and doing really well in it. Has clientele. She enjoys it, and she wasn't into. It's a skill she was like. But I was telling her I've always feared about growing up and being that uncle.
Yeah.
You go to these dawats, these invitations, these dawats do you guys used to say?
Yeah, we say dawats.
Yeah.
So it's just family parties.
Yeah, family parties. These uncles, they they got their boring IT job or accounting job.
Yeah.
It's not even their jobs. If you talk to them, most of them, their jobs aren't interesting. It just pays the bills. And you ask them about, and what are they talking about? They're usually talking about, in Ray growing up, is how Sheikh Hasina is running Bangladesh into the ground. So you're talking about some political situation that you haven't been back in 30 years. Some of people, and they're still commenting about the Awami League in Bangladesh and the versus the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. That's
my dad and his friends, they would talk about meat all the time. They would be talking about which halal store, and we were maybe 14, 12. Me and my brother would be chuckling in the corner, and they'd ask hey, what are you guys cracking up about? and we're like, you guys talk about the same thing every time you guys meet,
Right.
and it's the same three things, and they just laughed it off. But that's what interests them, and it just look. I totally get, like, our parents and their struggles. Their paradigm was completely different in how they viewed surviving in this country, right?
Yep.
They didn't have time for hobbies like we did, even though many of our parents do. I know my dad
Get into
does,
it
but-
later, right?
Yeah, but
I
Yeah.
think you're seeing it transpire to the second to their offspring,
Yeah.
where it's not like for instance, right? This question about, like, so people have commented on my weight loss, right? And some people have said, well, why now, right? Because you're 40, you're already married. It's not like, there's this whole idea of, like, you're only supposed to, like, lose weight when you're trying to get married,
yeah.
which who says I'm not, but. But anyways, for that point being aside, but
So happy your wife doesn't watch this.
it's funny because sometimes there are leaks in the community that will tell her, and she just kind of, like, doesn't care. They'll tell her, like, oh, Maheen said this on the podcast. She's like, oh, well, he doesn't say it at home, so I don't really care. So
Your wife's awesome,
you know what I'm
mashallah.
saying? But so Allah bless her. I mean, but I think that's where it was just like, yeah. I mean, it comes down to, like, well, it's something it feels good, and there doesn't have to be a reason. It seems like things are compartmentalized in weird ways for us, and it's inherited. For us. For Muslims, because we don't drink, because there's no drinking and party, and it's like food becomes a central figure. It's like, what's the next halal spot?
Yeah.
Right. And you can see how, like, hitting up Mr. Brost and Centro and, like, whatever, all that, and going in a cycle of, like, halal restaurants in Chicago. We got a lot.
Yeah.
Man, it can get you fat and lazy real quick.
Yeah. Well, now what I was just talking about us chuckling about my parents and them and his friends.
Yeah.
My dad and his friends that would talk about meat and stuff, and I'm like, wait, our friends do the same thing now. And it just kind of reminds you how like things are, like, cyclical,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think that you're not going to become a certain person, but you end up kind of following that same cycle.
Right.
And it also, like, puzzles me, like, based on some of the friends that we've grown up with, they follow, like, their parents' footsteps, like
Like a T.
to the T.
Yeah.
To the T, like the safety, the type of spouse they chose, every single thing is exactly about, how the Indian American or the subcontinent immigrant kind of thinks about security, finances, and it's so fascinating to me because my paradigm is so much more different, but then I know it's still part of my psyche too,
Yeah.
and I'm always fighting with that, and this need to be wanting to be free of all that.
Right.
So I was just talking to my wife about focusing our finances on paying off the whole house so that we could be free to do whatever we want. If we want to work for 3 months, we work enough to pay the taxes on the house, right? And the yearly taxes or whatever, and then, plus the additional expenses that you have. And that you actually have some level of freedom that most people otherwise wouldn't have. You could literally live off of $20,000 to $30,000 a year if you pay off your taxes, if you pay off your house and other debts, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of something what I've been really wanting.
What would your taxes be? Let me ask you a question. Let me ask
Yeah.
you, throw us looping. What would you, so let's say you pay your house off, right?
Yeah.
What would be your annual, but let's say you didn't live here. What would your expenses be? Your taxes still?
Yeah.
And then
Your
You still want to pay the
food-
utilities.
food utilities.
No, for the home. Let's say you wanted to live somewhere else for like a year,
Yeah.
outside the country.
Right.
What are your expenses here? Your taxes,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. Your utilities. I don't think you'd want to cut your utilities to a house, because a house, I think, water. A house without water running throughout for a year could be not the best thing.
Well, you can always turn that off.
Wouldn't it, like, have you ever been to a house where it feels like no water's run through, and it looks like the toilets don't look really, everything looks grimy?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, because
you can always have someone to come
you
check
have family,
up on.
you have family like living. So you could have but even if you're paying for water that's not being used, just
Yeah.
water running through the system, it's not that much, right?
Yeah.
And then whatever. So that's home expenses. Because I was looking into when we had Ustad No Sanders on the other day,
Yeah.
right? And so I was talking about the whole like living in Fez. Like for a family of like 5, me, my wife, my girls, to live in Fez, I was talking to some guys who like Americans who lived in Fez. They're like, it's probably $12,000
That's not bad.
for US for like you would need a car, right? And it's not like we wouldn't be able. I don't think you would have the 5G internet, right?
Yeah.
But it might be a thing where because I think a lot of it is about having different experiences.
My wife lived in Indonesia for several years, and they need half that amount.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Unless you're living in like Jakarta,
Yeah.
you can live really good with maybe 5,000 to 6,000 a year.
For a year.
Yeah.
Wow, that's even like good. That's why a lot of American expats, when do they do like online businesses or these digital nomads, they move to Thailand.
Yeah.
Because Thailand's a place where the American dollar goes a long way, and they said the food's better, it's fresher,
Yeah.
better weather. You don't have to if you hate snow, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably got mosquitoes and other stuff, but it is what it is. But anyways, but I wanted to
that's an interesting subject because I know it's been on your mind for so long about making hijra and the realistic possibility whether we can actually wrap our minds around living in a Muslim land for a long or extended period of time. Whether or not we should do that or not, I'm not talking about it being haram living in the United States. That's a different question.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. It's always been on my because it started back in
We bring this up a lot with a lot of our guests making hijra, and I think there's like a group of our listeners, some sizable section of it, they don't understand why would you want to leave the United States and move to a Muslim country. Are you guys suggesting it's haram to live here or not? The whole idea is just having a more Islamic lifestyle or more closer to people of knowledge, and I think based on that we could have a discussion about why
I just don't want my kids learning CRT. That's all. That's why hijra becomes wajib. Great segue.
Great segue, right?
I mean, my kids are in Islamic schools anyway, so it's not even an issue. But so I was talking to Sim before the show. I get asked a lot. I don't know why you don't get asked. Me, Mahin Islam, I get asked, why is Mad Mamluks so anti-CRT? Yada, yada, yada. How come you guys always pushing for anti-CRT? Like, you have this anti-CRT dialogue. I'm like, listen, man. And I tell people, like, listen. Me, Mahin, listen, you guys understand. Mad Mamluks, we're all different. All right? We're all 4 guys. We all have different takes. Sheikh Amr, I mean, if you ask him what CRT was, he wouldn't even know. He would think it's some other acronym. Something about chicken or something, right?
I think he has a better idea of it now.
Maybe he doesn't know, but he still has a vested opinion on it necessarily. He's like, whatever. Mort said his piece, and I think Mort
had a discussion with Yasser Morsi about it.
And Mort thinks
Yasser Morsi is a Australian CRT author, right? Yeah.
Right. So he's and I've talked to Yasser Morsi myself, and my position is that like I just don't like the fruits of how people who I've observed who embrace CRT. I just think they turn into being jerks in a way. Let's just leave it at that. And but I also don't think it's fair to like judge the entire ideology on a couple people. I think there may be benefits to it, et cetera, et cetera. But I also don't have the bandwidth or the interest to read on it right now.
Yeah.
Right. You, on the other hand, I feel like you are because you sometimes bring up CRT. You also, when we had Abra Ramesh on the show, you were like, when she said she was for CRT, you were like, no, why? So so the Mad Mamluks reputation as an anti-CRT platform probably comes from you.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask you, like, what is it like?
Well, it all first started when we had Ustad Muhammad Gilan on.
Okay.
And I was kind of researching where the whole woke thing was,
Yep.
CRT, most people didn't even have any idea. No one was talking about CRT when we started talking about it. Not even Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson. None of these people were talking about it when we had.
Gilan was the first one I heard about it from.
Right.
Okay.
So back then, when Gilan started talking about it, and I heard him talking about it, I'm like, hey, Ustad Gilan knows about CRT. Maybe we can bring him on the show and help him. And at that point, truthfully, I didn't know much about it. I just knew some things about it, and I tried to be as honest with the subject as possible because I just wanted to be objective about it. And I think what I realized after my studying of CRTs, most people don't even understand it. It's kind of like a lot of stuff gets lost in translation. Kind of like when you're talking about feminism, versus women's rights. We always say we're pro women's rights, but not necessarily pro. At least I do, not necessarily pro feminism, because there's all this other added baggage that different ideologues bring in. And then there's also the followers or the foot soldiers of these ideas that kind of propagate all kinds of crazy ideas that and associate it with the actual ideology, right? So it's a tricky subject to talk about, and that's why I know like activists like Umar Lee and old school activists, they don't necessarily like CRT, and they're very hesitant to talk about it because you're associating yourself with some weirdos who can who have like ideas that they've kind of with a broad brush, they've kind of hate on white people or different truths that they've kind of come up with. But at least with CRT, what I've understood from it is that there is an underlying problem where they've completely disassociated the issues that have come abroad over the past century is not necessarily specifically due to white supremacy. And they call it white supremacy, but they mean capitalism or the problems related to neoliberal capitalism specifically, which is basically big corporations creating policies around these corporations to the fundamental economic theory behind a lot of the world. A lot of the governments of the world is to fund or help and assist many multinational organizations that can exploit people, right? And the exploitation of these resources, and not just resources, but of humanity itself, is being associated with white people. But they won't say that. They'll use the term white supremacy instead of the evils of neoliberal capitalism. You understand?
Yeah.
They're kind of transposing this word white supremacy because it kind of fits in with what they want to say, but what they're really wanting, what they're really talking about are these issues, these issues that of exploitation that has happened through capitalism.
Well, why do you? So I'm asking this because I don't know. Why do you think they're using white supremacy as the terminology instead of because sometimes you'll use colonialism, right? So when someone says the colonial effects of certain things, you could be like, okay, that makes sense, right? You because I know you would agree, especially with your background, with have you studied Islam, like kind of having like an Islamist background, you would it would seem to me that you would agree with some of the like knowing working against systems of power and oppression, right? Which they seems like want to work against, but like, are you hung up on the fact that like it's always the language of they're trying to focus on white supremacy when it's not necessarily white supremacy? Is that one of the issues you have?
So you don't just look at the ideas themselves. Okay. You look at how the ideas are being disseminated to people, to their students in the universities. Right. You don't just measure an idea based on its idea itself. Right. Okay. So when the actual result of the idea and how it's taking place in society is also part of the measurement of that idea and how you evaluate it and see whether that idea actually has some merit to it. When you see students of CRT, people who've studied in these colleges and universities and see how their behavior is towards racial inequalities, right? You're seeing the most absurd version of their ideas. Mm-hmm. So I mean, a lot of times, and it's not necessarily always valid to test ideas this way, but to test an idea in its most absurd way is also a way to kind of measure how ideas are valid or not. You know, so when you see the manifestation of woke activists that we see today, we see them as maniacs. You just see them, adding to the race problem rather than help it and heal people. They're just they're creating more divisions. Their whole worldview is based on color, ethnicities, what you're allowed to say to certain people, what you're not allowed to say, creating its own framework of language, of how people are interacting with each other, and that in itself is causing so much confusion to people. That how about so what people like Jordan Peterson and them their answer to that is, how about we stick to our nation? Like, we as Americans, we ignore this. We don't get ourselves involved with CRT. We have, as Americans, we have our own shared values, and this should be the thing that we all rally around, the flag, right? Basically nationalism, right?
Sure.
So that's their answer, right? So that's why we as Muslims, Islam came as a force to obliterate all these views, all these frameworks of how to manage all these aspects of society, whether your color, or your nationality, or your family, or your family history, or your lineage. You know, all this stuff. Islam doesn't care about this stuff, and what CRT does is amplifies the inherent we already have a problem with, race and color and things like that, and just amplifies it. And it thinks it's healing it by trying to language police people and trying to create some kind of a framework of how the oppressed sector deals with the privileged sector, but it's actually just making it worse.
It's creating more division.
Yeah.
Because
it's not even addressing, it's just purely blaming it on race when it's not. When you have these problems in society where there's black people in society that are suffering in the slums or in the ghetto, it's not just because they're black. It's because they're purposely in an area where society doesn't care about them. It's not just a matter of multinational organizations not caring about them, but it's also human beings not willing to interact with the destitute, the poor. Mm-hmm. And when you want to blame that, there's this inherent problem because they're black, that, well, what about all the poor people? What about all the poor white people?
Because their counter would be like, there's more black people disproportionate, like from a percentage point of view, right? There's always, they're going to argue in that sense.
No, that's absolutely ridiculous, because there's just as many. Go to California and see how many homeless people you see in California. You'll see most of them, if not all of them, obviously not all of them, but a whole lot of them being white.
But you think it's just like a percent? It's a percent. The percentage of black folks who are disenfranchised versus the percentage of white folks, because there's going to be more white folks than black folks, right?
Right.
So you can't. So because there's a larger pool of white folks to pull from,
yeah,
you're going to naturally a smaller percentage of white folks will still amplify, right? But I think there's also like they'll point to specific situations, right? They'll talk about like the issues of like how a black person being pulled over by a cop versus a white person being, the perception is different.
Well, yeah, that's racism.
So that kind of thing, right? So is it almost like, it seems to me like what you're saying is that there is that the people who are using CRT, the people who are like the woke activists, are just not being nuanced at all, and they're using this broad brush and they're screwing everything up. Is that what you think? Is that kind of like the root of it all?
It's not even about nuance. It's their way of looking at society is shaped by race. That there's an inequality of distribution based on people's racial background, And that's just not true. There might be some contributing factor
Yeah.
from racism that is acting on that, but that's not the entire reason.
Okay.
And to say that it's a purely racism that's
Yeah.
doing this is actually not addressing the problem. The fact is that you have to understand, as human beings, as society, you have to create a culture of people wanting to assist the poor, the destitute, and when you don't have that, then you're going to have the problems that we see today. We as a society, as Western societies, we're incredibly selfish.
Okay.
We want to protect what we have, and we want to take care of what numero uno, and if we can, we'll help out someone else. And if you happen to benefit from something that also benefits me, then that is great.
Okay. What have you, as far as your own research, because so like you, Dr. Gitlan, I remember that. I still remember this conversation. Dr. Gitlan hits me on WhatsApp, and he's like, "Bro, the CRT stuff is so like like it's big in Australia, right?" And he's seeing like a lot of talking about like how. I think he mentioned that there's an MSA leader who came out as like bisexual, and they bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And I was like, "How's that? That doesn't make any sense." I was telling him. So, anyways, I kind of blew him up. I was like, "Listen, I was going to the church class at the time. I was like, man, listen, there are just some Christians in America. They need dawah, right?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Man, that's not a big deal, and you need to. This is the new thing." And so that was, but I never really looked into it. What have you read as far as like what are the thoughts? Because people talk about Foucault, Frantz Fanon.
Yeah.
David Mills is someone who was recommended to me by a buddy of mine who actually studied with him at Northwestern. He's I think he's one of the well-known professors of CRT. And my friend flew to the south side of Chicago, who was like experienced the streets, was like, "Yo, bro, it's like some kind of foreign language, man, when you talk about this stuff."
You can't. I wouldn't ever recommend any of that stuff to anyone, because it's just.
But I'm saying, have you read it for like what is the?
I've read some passages of Foucault.
Okay.
And it just was nonsensical.
Okay.
It just didn't make sense to me, and many of the terms that something about philosophers, and I'm not saying Foucault is the only one who does this. There's many people who do this. They make up their own words.
Yeah.
To describe something, and you as a student of his would have to understand that.
Right. So it's like you define it's almost like you need to take like in Islamic terms. Yeah. There's like kind of like we have like usul fiqh. You need to understand. They have their own like principle.
People who are activists, scholars like Chomsky, who are of activist persuasions, they also dismiss Foucault, and they dismiss critical race theory and just think of it as junk science or junk philosophy. It's just not. It's not addressing what actually. It's not a correct understanding of how the world works. It's trying to create an easy enemy, and trying to get people to rally around. Because on the face of it, it says racism. Well, who doesn't want to be against racism? We're all anti-racist, right? But is being anti-racist actually gonna solve the problem of the ghetto?
Yeah, and again, my final observation is that people who are on a lot of times people who are pontificating, I almost feel like it's a way for them to feel they want to contribute. They're upset about what's going on, so they feel like pontificating about it and reading Foucault or Fanon is actually contributing. And that's not what I've at least talked when I've spoken to brothers who are involved at like organizations like Iman, which is the Inner City Muslim Action Network, right, which does real work, right? The street cleanups, like bringing like actual food and groceries to impoverished areas where they don't like food deserts. And you talk to them, and they're like, "No, this is the real work. There isn't like CRT isn't fixing gun violence. Right? People getting shot." But anyways, we got somebody in the room who's a returning guest. About to jump off.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you, man?
Alhamdulillah. How are you guys?
I'm good. Alhamdulillah. Let me just go ahead and fix your camera, because you're a little bit off to the.
Your face is cut off.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's a lot better.
I can only see Maheen, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'll fix that in a second.
What's up with your audio? How come they get that little static? I thought you upgraded.
There's static?
Is it? Do you
feel he's just using the AirPods.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
He's using the AirPod.
You want me to get my mic?
Yeah, get your mic, man.
Get a mic.
Yeah, I'll be right
That's
back.
kind of harsh on the ears.
Yeah, I use. I've never tried AirPods. I use AirPods a lot. Like
Yeah.
with the AirPod Pros recently, because battery life is phenomenal on those. The old ones, I dropped them in the toilet and like freaking battery life died.
You know what? I'm on my iPad, so it doesn't hook up.
That's all right.
That's fine. It's what it is. We won't be on for that long. So we got Mugger coming in about 20 minutes.
Scooch over. Scooch over a bit more.
There we go.
Yeah.
So are you at your gym?
Yeah, I'm in the basement now. Not like the gym that I train out of.
Okay.
All right. Well, Humam Samurai. A samurai or a samurai? What are you going with these days? What's a more marketable term?
Samurai. That's more marketable.
All right. Humam Samurai. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, man?
Alhamdulillah. How are you guys? It's been a minute.
It's been good, man. I heard that you started a new organization. I know you've been doing a lot of grappling with men on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Sweaty grappling.
Hot and sweaty grappling.
Russell Brand thinks if he started jiu-jitsu early in life, he would have become a homosexual. Did you hear that? I'm serious. He actually said this with a straight face, like straight up.
That's a bit much. There's nothing sexual about having a 300-pound man on top of you sweating buckets onto your face. There's nothing sexual.
I don't know. That was one of his revelations, because he just reflect. There's this YouTube video like 5 reasons why jiu-jitsu like saved his life, right?
Oh Lord.
They say your volume is really high, so maybe.
Oh, maybe I could lower it.
Maybe he could lower his volume. Okay, when the listeners say the audio is high, they say that it's pretty high. Yeah. So you started. We know you did doing the jiu-jitsu thing for like what, year and a half now. With COVID, but COVID
on and off because of
COVID. But like you just graduated and now you are a personal fitness coach. You actually have clientele.
Yeah. Yep. Alhamdulillah. So I'm 2 months in now.
So why the hell should I hire you as a personal fitness coach? Like what's your appeal? Like what's your background? I just thought you were a dude who like had some like we used to talk about all kinds of stuff on the Bad Mamluks, and fitness wasn't really one of them.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that knows a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
The annoying friend that brings up the historical facts during dinner.
Yeah.
But no, actually, yeah, I don't like talking about things until I think I know what I'm talking about. So with fitness, I actually graduated with a bachelor's degree in exercise science. So then after that, I trained for like a month, and I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm talking about. It always felt weird too, because you get that imposter syndrome. Also, there's a bit of there's like an image thing in the fitness industry too. So like if you're not like a roided like 400 pounder, you know what I mean? Like people look at you like, oh, like what kind of credibility do you have when I can go to like this juice head?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Because honestly, like I was asking you, we were talking on the phone, and I was trying to get through. I think signal was kind of bad. We were talking on the phone earlier today, and I was like, because one of the reasons I recently just finished with a personal coach, right, myself, and alhamdulillah, he got me great results, like best. Probably, he got me in the best shape of my life. But one thing I told him was like, I saw that he was jacked, right? And I saw how he used to look before, so I saw a transformation. I was like, whatever he did obviously worked for him. But Kumam, you kind of a skinny dude, right? So like,
you're right.
Why would I like hire like I guess if I wanted to depends. If I wanted to get swole, get some mass, I would think I don't want to hire somebody or like get in the power do you have a niche, or like why? How do you address that question? That would be me kind of giving you some pushback. Like, why would I hire you if you're a skinny dude?
So here's the thing. So like for example, if you go on LeBron James' Instagram, you'll see him doing his workouts, right? The guy's a terrific athlete, right? So if you were the average Joe, you could go on his page and be like, I'm gonna do whatever this guy does. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if he's doing push-ups like that, if he's doing quarter squats and I do quarter squats, I'm gonna get like that, right? But in reality, Like LeBron James has some of the worst push-up form I've ever seen. You know what I mean? But he can get away with it. He's a freak athlete, right? He does quarter squats, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. It is a terrible way to squat, right? But he can get away with it, right?
But why?
So
Okay, so let me stop you there. Why? He has access to the best personal trainers in the world, right? He should.
Yeah.
You would think. Okay. So
You would
why?
think, yeah.
Like, because to me it sounds like kind of like, all right, like somebody must know something to give him that. You feel what I'm saying? Whoa.
or not. What you know, there's in the fitness industry, it's kind of ugly in the sense that people promote what's shiny, right? So for a couple of years, we saw the whole like stability ball like phenomenon where people tried to do squats on stability balls, and like there's all sorts of nonsense like that, right? Which would just get you hurt, right? But you saw celebrities do it. You saw all sorts of famous trainers do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, the industry grows, and so people try to always like innovate and experiment with things. But it's like if you think about it, it's like jiu-jitsu, right? Like everyone's trying to invent their own little like flashy move, but at the end of the day, it's the fundamentals that win you the match. It's your arm bars, it's your triangles, right? It's those that win you the match, not the flying. Like when was the last time you did a flying triangle, right? It looks nice. It's a great move, don't get me wrong, but like you gotta get your fundamentals down first. And so LeBron James, you know what I mean, can get away with all sorts of crazy stuff, right? But if your average Joe tried to do what he does, you'll get injured. Like I got a guy with a rotator cuff problem because he was doing push-ups like that with his elbows flared out. He was doing those every single day, right? And now his shoulder is jacked up. Can't even lift his arms more than this.
Because of him following LeBron's that's how you know about it? Because I wouldn't even know what LeBron does.
Right. Yeah. So he wasn't following LeBron specifically, but it's the same way. I mean, like, so if you're doing push-ups like this and you flare your elbows out, you're going to hurt your shoulders.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you ask like 9 out of 10 people on the street to do push-ups, that's how they're going to do it.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Nobody keeps their elbows in tucked.
No, to me, that's always what you like. I mean, I don't know. Maybe sometimes you learn it the right way, and because
pay attention to warm-ups in jiu-jitsu class next time, and because you guys do push-ups during warm-ups.
We do.
Yeah, pay attention to how everyone else does it. You'll see the flared elbows. It's crazy.
I'll look. I always try to like be late, so I skip warm-ups. Because like you're already like, because I already have do the warm-ups because it's so time-based, man. But anyways, yeah. So go on. So one reason is you're saying that you as a fresh college grad know form better than LeBron James' trainer. Okay, is that what I heard? Sim, did you hear that?
I heard it.
Okay. But obviously you got clients, so they bought into it. So, but what else? And what else is like? But again, here's my point. Like I guess this is the question I have, and I told this to my own coach. Right? How do people? There's so much noise in the fitness industry, right? There's so much out there for the average layman, and I think this is what stunts people from getting anywhere because there's so much out there. People, like we were talking, Sim, would you agree that most people? No one says, I just want to be a fat bum. Most people are like, everyone has a desire to be in better health, better shape.
Most people. There's some fatties out there who just this is my body. I'm fat. I'm happy.
So you want like a basic litmus test question? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Like to know if somebody.
Well.
So
again,
I'll tell you.
So how do you know there's all these programs online. There's YouTube now. There's so much information. And I think there's information overload and people don't know. And there's all this hack stuff. There's OMAD. There's ketogenic diets. There's, CrossFit. People who do BJJ but no strength training with BJJ, other martial arts. Yeah. How do you know what do you do?
Okay. So first you got to break down what you're training for, right? So if you're someone who's a BJJ competitor, you're not going to train the same way as like a 40-year-old mom or like a 40-year-old dad with like chronic back pain, right? That's one. Two, but for 90% of the population, 95% of the population that's not an athlete, one way to know if someone is full of it or not is whether or not they have you lift free weights, right? So, like, unfortunately, like 80% of trainers will have you do this bogus cardio. Like, I have a client who told me like he was surprised by the way that I was training him because he went to like Lifetime and the dude had him on the Stairmaster for 20 minutes. Right? So if somebody has you on the Stairmaster for 20 minutes, you're getting robbed, right? One basic way, and I mean, this is very like foundational, like a superficial way to know, obviously, but it's like a very quick way to know if someone's full of it is whether or not they have you do free weights. And when I say free weights, that could be like dumbbells, barbells, things like that. If they got you on Smith machines, like walk the other way. If they got you just, like on a treadmill, you know, unless you're an athlete training for performance, you have no business being on a treadmill.
So let me ask you. So what about? So I saw a post the other day because you're talking about accessory exercises, right? So what about people? What about programs that have like bench press, barbell rows, deadlifts, like the barbell stuff, but then they have accessory stuff like that's isolation, like where you're using a machine. As like
that's fine, but
would you call it finishers, right? People call them as like because you've already done your core stuff, right? At the first 30 minutes, you've done the hard work, and then you maybe accentuate certain things.
That's fine. It's not ideal though. So like even my accessory stuff is free weight, right? So I mean, if you're like, I wouldn't have you do like barbell curls on the machine, right? I'd have you actually curl an actual dumbbell. Okay. Or a barbell. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what I do for accessories. If someone does the 5 basic compound lifts and then they want to add some accessory stuff, fine. You know what I mean? But like leg extensions are a waste of time. Like you don't, I till this day, I've never told anyone to do any leg extensions. Like it's just a useless exercise.
But how do you do a leg extension with free weights? Like I could see you could do a dumbbell curl on a machine, right? But you could do it with free weights. How do you do a leg extension with like actual? What do you do? Tie a weight to your legs and then curl them up?
No. So you do sled work. So sled work is a great alternative to that. So like you have like a strip of turf and you're pushing a sled and pulling it back.
Yeah, but a lot of gyms don't even have that space for it, right? Or a sled.
I mean, I don't know. I'm in a little fitness studio and they got that. And it's like 1,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's considered accessory work, you would say? Sled work? Versus not, because it doesn't that seem like more core? Like you're doing, because you're engaging the entire body.
Yeah, you are engaging the whole body, but at the same time, it's not like a compound lift, like a deadlift or like a squat. Yeah. But it's very good, especially so here's another thing. Like my niche isn't like athletes, right? So I actually train in a fitness studio run by a Muay Thai coach, right? Okay. So I see all his his fighters come in and do strength and conditioning with him. And it's interesting to see because most of my clients are middle-aged. You know what I mean? Their parents, they got back pain. Like I got 2 people with bulging discs. I've got somebody with a titanium rod in his leg. Okay. I've got a guy in a wheelchair, right? So my niche is just helping your average person get stronger and move freely without pain.
And they also probably have time limitations too. They can't be in the gym for like an hour and a half.
Right. Yeah. So I do work with disabled people, but not necessarily disabled. I mean, it could be just like a 40-year-old like mother, right? And the thing is, like, what's sad about the fitness industry is that 99% of it's catered towards athletes, right? And it ignores the people that need it most, who are your average Joe. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's who I'm targeting for the most part. And I'm seeing great results. So like the guy with the titanium rod in his leg, it's been 2 weeks. So when he came, he was having trouble sitting down without pain, right? He would sit kind of on his side and roll over. Now I got him squatting the bar and he's in disbelief. I got him lunging and deadlifting and he's just like, I don't understand what you did.
What did you do?
So I had him do progressions.
Okay.
So I had him do like, because people think of the squat wrong, right? When you squat, you're essentially sitting back in a chair that's like far behind you, right? But what people do
Is that
mistakenly
is that why Louis Simmons uses so big on the box squat?
Box squats are tremendous. Yeah,
because it forces you to get that,
kills the momentum.
right.
Right. It not only kills. So the box squat is tremendous because it kills momentum.
The box
so
squat, by the way, if anyone, by the way, we're just turning into a lifting podcast now, but we go from CRT to like, this is just like Joe Rogan. But it's like a box. So if you imagine, like, you know what a regular barbell squat is, right?
Yeah.
You essentially put a box behind you that you sit back on, sit down on, and that stops, and you pause back up. I've never done it. I've seen it done, but there's Louis Simmons from West Side Barbell, who's like considered the godfather of powerlifting or something.
Yeah.
But he employs that for his lifters, and I guess that's why, because it helps you with your form, your muscle memory.
Well, not just that. So so that works for experienced lifters as well. So I actually teach the box squat. I teach it to learn how to squat first, but also it's really good to strengthen the bottom position of your squat because it kills all the momentum. Whereas you see some people squatting and they just kind of like go up like an elastic band.
Yeah.
So when you do a box squat, it forces you to sit. Then it really strengthens that bottom position of your squat.
You need the power to lift back up with starting from zero. Okay.
Well, Mom,
right.
I have a problem. Every time I sneeze, I throw out a muscle in my back. Like you know I'm not joking. I know it sounds funny, but it's a legitimate problem. I swear to God, I'll bring my wife on this show right now, and she will verify that. I will always throw out some. There's like a muscle right by the shoulder blade, in the back.
Your deltoids?
No, not the deltoid. It's the shoulder blade. You know that spot.
Oh, the lats.
The spot where you can't scratch. It's always that one spot that goes itchy and you just can't reach back there and you need help. It's right below the shoulder. The shoulder blade.
Your lats?
No, the lats are here.
Yeah, they go behind.
Okay, well, maybe some all the way in the back part of the lats. Let me pull up the back muscle chart.
So, what does your workout routine look like?
And 0.
Sneezing.
I COVID. I was
You were
doing
swimming.
well.
You were
I was
swimming,
doing
right?
well, man. I was so shredded in the middle of COVID, and then I found a lady, and everything went just like, I won the game. I got married.
Time to get fat again.
There's no more.
There's no motivation.
There's no motivation after you get married.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Were you experiencing this while you were lifting, or is this new?
This has happened a few times over the period of 5 years.
Okay.
Like I'll sneeze and I'll just like pull this muscle right in my back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
would you
so
recommend
when
steroids?
you did lift, steroids?
Yes, I was
Um,
like natural
for
steroids.
99.
I'm not talking about the injectables. Okay, that's that's for when Sim hits 50. I'm going to experiment with that. But right now,
Experiment TRT?
I'm talking about some of the natural stuff.
Like what?
Tangot. You know Tangot, right?
No.
Come on, man.
Testosterone?
I don't know enough about this stuff. What I do know is, though, if you want to experiment with any kind of like steroids, you should hit up. He's on YouTube. His name is More Plates, More Dates. The guy's really, really knowledgeable about all this stuff. He's on gear himself, so
It's cool. Yeah,
he answers every question in the book.
Is that the black dude?
No, he's a white Canadian dude.
What's
Dude
his,
has like bowling balls for shoulders.
What's his name? Chris Bumstead?
More plates, more dates.
No, what's his real name?
Derek. I don't know his last name.
Oh, really? Okay, it's not okay.
Yeah.
More dates.com. Your one-stop shop for roids and
Yeah, but if you go on his YouTube channel, he answers like all sorts of questions.
So he's
sorts of.
So he himself is juiced, right?
Yeah, he's on TRT.
Okay.
So same thing Joe Rogan is on.
I got you.
I thought he also does human growth hormone.
Is that the same thing? Is it TRT?
No,
and HGH?
HGH is different than TRT. TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. I don't know if he does HGH. I know for a fact he does TRT though.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, by the way, I was talking about something called Tongat Ali. Tongat space Ali. Ali. No relation to Muhammad Ali.
Oh, I was thinking it was like maybe a Shia thing.
Look, here's the thing about supplements. Like, honestly, the only thing you need, like, if you were adamant about taking one supplement, the thing I would recommend most is probably creatine.
You
We used
like,
to have Eno Explode. You remember that?
Eno Explode. Is that pre-workout or something?
Yeah, it had this really cool red jar.
Yeah, I get creatine by itself. None of the crazy caffeine.
Nitrous oxide. I thought that stuff goes in cars.
No, it's like the creatine has always had this impression. I used to always have the impression of being like for meatheads.
Yeah.
Like, football players used to do creatine. I just started getting on creatine actually just a few months, like even in the middle of my program. I was like asking my coach I asked my coach about it, right? And he was like, yeah.
It's very effective.
He just was like, he didn't prescribe, because I had a bad habit of not drinking enough water, and he just didn't want me to destroy my kidneys. So he was like, listen, man, if you're going to drink this, when you put it in, measure how much water you're drinking with it, and then like double the amount of water. Just make sure you just flush out. I don't want you having kidney problems later and then blaming me for it, right? So
yeah, you definitely need to be drinking water with creatine. Like, I'm drinking half a gallon a day.
Oh yeah, because so I mean, there was a I see you listen to. There's like different theories too. So do you? So your common niche is average Joe who has like health issues, just wants to get in shape, right?
Yeah, or get stronger. I mean, they don't necessarily have to have any issues.
But isn't
just
that
building strength?
Okay, so do you find that like clients come in without specific goals? Their goals aren't really specific, or is it like? Because I know for me, it was very vain. It was like vanity. It's like about looking good, right?
Yeah, I'd say most of the people that I get are like that, and they don't realize what they should be doing, right? So 9 out of 10 clients that I've gotten want to lose weight, right? They don't know what that entails. They don't know how the best way to do it is. They just want to lose weight, right? They're like, my I got man boobs. They're embarrassing. I want them gone. I want you to just wipe them off. I'm like, you can't spot reduce fat, but we'll get you stronger.
Right. You're carrying around a spare tire and stuff too, right? Up on the, But I think that's where it starts with, and but are they that specific? 'Cause I feel like people even are your client. I found a lot of people aren't like forthcoming enough to even be that direct with a coach, with someone else.
I mean, everyone I had is pretty direct. I had someone come to me like, "Hey, I got love handles. I want these gone." I'm just like,
"Oh, really?
Okay, yeah, we're gonna build." Yeah, so everyone I've had has been pretty specific.
Okay.
They know what they want. They just what they want might not be what's best for them, right? So like, I have some cardio bunny clients too.
Okay. So what do you mean? What do they want? Like, are you saying like man boobs are good, or like what do you mean by that?
No, what I mean is, for example, so this might sound counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I'm sure you're familiar with this because you had a coach. But most people have this idea that in order to lose weight, they need to be in a caloric deficit and do cardio. Okay. Right? So eat little, do a lot of cardio. Now, here's the thing. That's going to bring down your weight initially, right? But eventually, your body is going to adapt. Your metabolism is going to adapt. And eventually, what you're doing is not going to be enough to keep you where you're at, let alone burn more, right? So what ends up happening is that your metabolism slows down and you gain all that weight back, if not more, right? And the reason being is because like 1 pound of fat, it only costs your body 3 calories a day to sustain it. So it's a very cheap tissue. Whereas muscle tissue, your body burns 30 to 60 calories a day to sustain it, right? So instead of manually trying to burn fat by doing cardio and eating less, instead, someone who's obese who might come to me, I'll actually bump up their calories, right? And they're just like, I'm sorry, what? What did you just tell me to do? And I'm like, you heard me right. I want you to bump up your calories by 100 calories, and we're not going to do any cardio. I want you to cut it out, and we're going to lift weights instead. And they're just dumbfounded. But after a month, I got this physician client who texts me, and he's like, listen, I don't understand what's happening. My coworkers are telling me that I lost weight, but I got on the scale and I'm 10 pounds heavier. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And I told them, you're right where you're supposed to be. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Like, the goal is not to lose weight on the scale. It's to change your body composition.
Right.
Right. So it's to burn fat, build muscle, and that muscle, just to sustain it, your body will burn calories, which is a much more efficient and long-term way to slim down than to manually try to burn fat. I mean, how much fat can you burn? So if I go on a treadmill right now and I run for an hour, max I'm burning 500 calories. The treadmills that tell you you're burning 800, 900, 1,000, that's BS. Like, there's no way you're burning that much, right? So you're burning 500 calories per hour. I could eat that in 2 minutes, right? Like, that's a really inefficient way to lose weight. And the thing is, fine, you might be able to pull that off, but how long are you willing to keep that up? You know, are you going to eat like that? Are you going to eat 1,500 calories for the rest of your life? Like, no. So the moment you stop, the moment everything goes back the way it was. Whereas right now, I'm 160 pounds. I'm eating 3,000 calories comfortably. You know what I mean? And I'm not gaining any fat. I'm still like 7%.
But aren't you also like, so you're like 6'3", you're small, you're skinny, I would say. 6'3", you're 6'3" or something?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've added weight, I think, recently, right, too?
Yeah. So in the last like four or 5 months, I've gained 15 pounds.
Okay. Well, so yeah, it actually makes sense because Sheikh Amr saw me the other day on Sunday. He was like, "Hey, Maheen, it looks like you've even lost more weight." And I actually didn't. I actually gained 5 pounds since the last time he saw me, right? And
bingo.
But I think the other thing is, which I realized what my coach did for me, what it worked was, I was sick for a month. Like from mid-June to mid-July, I did almost nothing. No jiu-jitsu, no lifting, nothing, right? And I ate like crap. I was eating like, whatever. Like I got loose with diet because to me it's like exercise feeds diet. But I was weighing myself every day just to make sure because I wasn't trying to like screw anything up. And I noticed nothing was changing. I noticed like my scale even. I remember one day I had like Mr. Bro's Halal, like Nashville hot chicken, Holy Buckets, Andy's custard, probably like 4,000 calories or something. And I dropped weight on the scale the next day. And my wife was like, "Oh, that's probably the metabolism is so cranked up now that it's just burning right through it." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's exactly why. Like if I get someone who's like obese, right? And they want to lose weight, that's why I tell them eat more, because chances are they've been dieting for so long that their metabolism is shot.
Yep.
So it needs to be jump started.
Yep.
So I actually have them up their calories, and then all of a sudden their metabolism starts working again.
Right. So what can you tell me about like people talk about like, again, do people want to get, you don't get clients then that necessarily want to get stronger, it's like about looks, right? So there's a difference here between, there's a way you train for strength versus a way you train for like looks, which is like hypertrophy versus strength. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So here's I'll explain the two terms and then I'll tell you what I do. So hypertrophy is like increasing the size of the muscle, right? Whereas strength, you don't necessarily have to increase the size of the muscle that much, right? You can train directly for strength. They do overlap though, right? But you can definitely train one more than the other, right? So I don't know if you've seen those big the strongman competitions. Those guys have guts, you know what I mean? They got like big bellies, right? Like if you look at like Eddie Hall or whatever, dude's got a belly, but strongest man in the world.
I thought that was from steroids.
No. Are you talking about the what's it called? I know it's what Joe Rogan started getting. Yeah. Not necessarily though. I mean, most of not all of those guys are on roids. Some of those guys, they're just strong. You know what I mean? They're training for strength. They're not training for muscle hypertrophy, which is what like bodybuilders train for because they're posing on stage. Yeah. So those guys lift more than the crazy jack bodybuilders, right? They're just training for different things. So usually when people train for hypertrophy, they train high repetitions, right? And strength, they train low repetitions. Now, your average person wants to be doing your average person, I should say, needs to be doing both of those things. However, what you'll find with a lot of trainers who like learn by trial and error and things like that, or got these like janky certificates, what you'll find is that they will try something themselves and it'll be working until it doesn't. until they plateau, and then they switch to something else, and then they're like, this is it. This is the key. Now I need to do like 12 reps instead of like the 5 I was doing, right? And then that plateaus, and then now they're confused again. What they're not realizing is that the key all along was switching up the stimulus, right? So I put my clients through like month-long phases, right? So every 4 weeks I switch it up. So the first 4 weeks I train them between the 12 and 16 rep range, and then after that 4 to 6 rep range.
Okay,
right?
So
and then
you
after
alternate between hypertrophy and over. Okay, I got you. So you're
absolutely.
So do you think and it's okay to focus on you'll make enough gains in size over a month? You don't have to go longer than that.
Yeah, you don't have to go along that because like if you're not making gains after a month, chances are your body is plateauing, right? So you need to switch up the stimulus.
I got
and
you.
Here's the thing: you don't want to wait till you plateau to switch it up. You want to switch it up right before you plateau, because like once you plateaued, now you're digging out of a hole.
I got
right?
you. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Humam, what do your parents think of all this? Are you trying to do a full-time job?
That's his full-time job. That's what he makes. That's his entire living is off this, right?
I thought like our families they're not usually supportive of this kind of stuff. Humam, they want you to be a doctor. Didn't you say that your dad wanted you to be a doctor? Or someone?
When I was very young, yeah. But here's the thing: my dad himself went to my dad was a veterinarian.
Okay.
My dad was a veterinarian in Iraq, and then he comes to the U.S. He does like 2 PhDs, one in food science, one in like whatever, I don't know. My dad's a genius, mashallah. And then at the age of 40, he goes to medical school. Okay. What? He comes back from medical school, and he's not interested in residency at all. Right. He's like, this is some kind of joke. So he opens his own business. He opens a healthcare agency, like a PCA service.
Yeah.
And so then he started like becoming like more business minded. And so my dad wasn't like really excited about me working for like a big box gym like LA Fitness or Lifetime Fitness. But when I told him I wanted to start my own business, he was like, go for it. Like, I support you.
Business minded.
Yeah. He's become more business minded.
Because our Arabs in general, I was talking about a friend of mine the other day. Is that
they like to own businesses.
Your own businesses, you guys have more American qualities than Desis, I would say.
Yeah, Desis want stability.
Stability, like America's, the American mindset, the frontier, like, or gun ownership, for instance, right? Like, it's pretty normal for find like Palestinian guys in Bridgeview to own firearms to go to the range. Desi,
oh yeah,
oh dude, it's like I was talking to a friend of mine because like we had like family friends that got like robbed. They live in a super nice neighborhood and they got burglarized and their house got ransacked, right? Dad's like an executive at some healthcare company, and we're like, well, that happened to them, and and we were so unprepared. I think our average I think my parents, if someone like went to their house to like rob them, they'd just be like, oh, take whatever you want. They had no preparation, right? You roll.
Oh no, man!
You roll Arab dude spot, man, in Bridgeview, they'll just freaking take your head off.
Bro, my family members are hunters. I mean, here, like they go deer hunting. We make our own deer jerky.
For real? Yeah. So inshallah, I am looking, because I was talking to another friend of mine who's also Bengali, and we were like, yeah, we got to stop this culture, man. We're just soft and not being even BJJ. I remember did I tell you the story in the podcast? So my father-in-law, my daughter started doing BJJ with me, right? We started at the same time. So I don't know if I told you the story, her mom. So she's 8. And so I get home from work one day. My wife's like, my dad sent me an article about how some kid in Thailand died from judo. 7-year-old, right? So I'm like, okay, like what happened? He's like, well, he fell and he hit his head, and I was like, well, you could fall and hit your head on the curb randomly anywhere and die if you fall the wrong way, right? So I figured it was like a free accident, people get thrown doing in judo, whatever. Kid fell awkwardly, whatever. It's a freak thing. It happens, right? Angel of death doesn't care. When it's your time, it's your time. That's the means. But me, I wanted to Google it. So I just Googled judo, Thailand, 7-year-old boy. And I found this, and I found the article. And you know what I found out, man? I was like, this kid got thrown 27 times in class on purpose by the teacher, to the point where he was unconscious. They kept throwing him when he was unconscious. They thought he was faking it. And I told my wife that, and I was like, you know what? This is really the context of it. This would never happen in America, because that judo, whoever the master was, would be going to jail, right? You know what I'm saying? And to me, it made me seem like it was almost like this idea that, oh, my father-in-law was like just petrified that his granddaughter is doing some martial arts and wanted to like sabotage it in some way. Like he just didn't like it. He wasn't comfortable with that idea. So he had to like look for some freak way to like put some like fear into my wife because, you know, because she was on board with it obviously, and with doing jiu-jitsu, you know what I'm saying? And so I told her that, like, listen, that's it. It is what it is. But it goes back to you know, I think the South Asian mindset is almost like the super like we were so like told just to be doctors and engineers and just lay down and not be violent, not push back. I think Sim talks about this when you're kids, don't fight back, just take it, just be nice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nah, man, like, you know, forget that. It's like I got 3 girls that all need to be like, I'm already telling my daughter like, hey, because I had her read Jocko Willink's book, Way of the Warrior Kid, right? She read it in like she could not put it down.
Really?
She devoured it in like 3 hours straight. She just like, I gave it because what happens is I take her to class, I will like pack a book for her because she's got to wait through my class for another hour. So then she'll read something. I gave her Jocko's book and for her birthday, and I see she started, and by the time I'm done my class, she's already like halfway through some chapter 14. I'm like, she's flying. And then she read the rest of it as soon as she got home, and she was done.
That's awesome.
So I was like, all right, maybe she read some other. She's like, what else? She's like, what else did you give me for my birthday? What other books did you buy? It's like, I didn't get anything else right now for you, but like your mom got you this book about some like some chick book from this girl in who's like visiting Istanbul, right? And she read like 5 pages and she put it down. I was like, why'd you stop? He's like, this book's not interesting. And I was like, to my wife, like, hey, my book, she just devoured. I have to go order part 2 for her this weekend, actually. Hopefully I can get it by Saturday for her class when she has to wait on me. Like Jocko's part 2 of Way of the Warrior Kid. And she's telling me, and it's like, hey, Dad, do you know that, hey, Abu, do you know that, like, Mark, the guy in the class, he does jiu-jitsu too? So I'm like, all right. So I'm telling her, like, the belt system. And I was like, yeah, you know, if you do well, and maybe Mariam, my middle kid, she'll follow you to do it. You guys can start the Firdaus Sisters Academy or something. You know what I'm saying? In like 10, 15 years. You're like, because you start when you're 8, you know, they say it takes you 10
years. It's going to get real good.
They say it takes you 10 years to become a black, like, and jiu-jitsu black belts are like, that's a legit black belt. Not like, I saw like someone her age, an 8-year-old kid in our community, got a black belt in Taekwondo, and I was like, I mean, does that actually mean anything, or is that BS? Like, is that for real? Like, come on, dude. Like a black belt take when you're 8 years old? Like, for real?
So you know what makes jiu-jitsu like so traditional martial arts still have a place, especially for kids, right? Because they teach them balance and reflexes and all that stuff. But the reason why you'll see a bunch of like people don't know what they're doing with like black belts, or I won't say people don't know what they're doing, but you know, someone that you could easily take, like for example, you could easily take, right? Might have a black belt, right? Is because the traditional martial arts, unfortunately, they don't spar, or I should say they can't spar, right? Because, I mean, other than point sparring. So like right now, if we're in a Taekwondo class, at what percent out of 100 intensity can we spar without giving each other concussions, right? So like if you kick me in the head too hard, I might be out of training for 2 weeks, so you can't.
Right.
So you got to point spar, right? With jiu-jitsu, like sometimes in sparring, sometimes you flow roll in sparring, but sometimes you go to the death. Like you're going at 100% intensity, and when someone catches you, you tap out and you restart. So when you're able to train at that intensity, you advance your technique that much further, right? You learn the nitty gritty, like the details, right? Because you're actually crossing that bridge, right? And the traditional martial arts are not crossing that bridge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right, because jiu-jitsu, when you're rolling with somebody, you're getting real resistance, right, as you would in a real. And so it's not just a technique. It's not like, because I could buy a blow-up doll and roll with a blow-up doll, right?
Oh, yeah. You know I heard rumors about that.
You know what I'm saying? And like easily like get this triangle choke on this blow-up doll and then wonder why it doesn't work in real life. Because a blow-up doll has no, like, her name is Ann Arbor, by the way. But it's an inside joke for those of you Ohio State guys. That's pretty much so. So Humam, what's in the future for you? We got to wrap up here. We got to pay Maghrib here and all that. But anything. So you still looking for clients? How can people reach out to you if they want to sign up? And,
Yeah, so right now I am doing in-person and online clients. So just hit me up on my Instagram. Get Samurai Strong. Samurai spelled like a samurai Japanese warrior, right? Get Samurai Strong.
Okay.
That's my Instagram. Just hit me up, DM me.
Well, you're supposed to say my schedule is full for the next 6 months. You'll be put in a queue, bro. Hit up my guy Nabil Aziz. He'll help you out, in creating hyper.
I mean, we're on a WhatsApp group together, so Nabil gives free advice in the war room.
Sounds good, inshallah.
This is like the WhatsApp group of WhatsApp groups, by the way. That's like
the war room, yeah.
The war room.
It is getting. I'm at the point where it's starting to pick up, and so it's getting difficult to manage. So now I'm trying to develop management strategies because I'm up to 15 people now.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, 15 clients is a lot. Then what you got to do is after a year, then you got to start jacking your prices up.
Yeah, I already jacked it up.
Nice. That's what's up. I know. There's so
after
much.
The first month, I was like, "This is too little."
I was telling Sim, what do you charge for podcast advice these days?
Depends. If someone's really poor and they're really good,
What do you
I'll
mean
do
they're
it for
really
free.
good? If they've done nothing, how do you know they're really good?
No, meaning I know that they have talent.
Okay. Then
I'll do it for free. If they're beneficial to the ummah.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, and they definitely they need to have their. I'll send them equipment. That's I'll buy them stuff.
I know you've done that. So but in general, if
$100.
$100 for a call
For an hour.
For an hour?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. I charge $1
And
a minute.
I'll give them all that money back if they actually launch everything.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more like a buffer because most people you helped did nothing.
Yeah.
Did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Literally.
I just don't want my time to be wasted. I'm just it's not about the money for me. It's about you actually doing it.
Right, I hear you. Yeah, so it's a very noble endeavor. Me, at the end of the day, I'm just I see that too. But I used to get free advice. If I'm driving and someone wants to call me, but I'm like, yo, that time could have been spent talking to Humam or somebody or Nabil Aziz, right? I'd rather talk to Nabil Aziz or Humam than some random Joe who's not gonna start a podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or listen to a podcast. By the way, have you listened to American ISIS on Audible?
No, I want to listen to that though. That seems exciting. I never heard of that guy. What's his name? I can't remember.
Russell something.
And he's a white guy who went to Afghanistan and he trained to become a jihadi. And
Syria. Is he?
Was it Syria?
I think Syria. Yeah. He's ISIS. Yeah. He's
and then he was giving all of his stories and background information, or not necessarily, all kinds of information about him and his journey to a journalist back home.
Right. Aren't you offended? It should have been us. You should have been hitting us up for that.
Right. But
we were around back then, 2016.
My opinion of these people who are,
at least help the ummah out before you go out,
bro. It's all I
you know what I'm saying?
I think it's a little.
We
bit,
also could have been, but the thing is,
I think with some of these guys, it's about legacy, man. They want a story written about them. They want to be talked about. They have grandiose visions of themselves. People will be talking about my battles for the next 100 years. About how I was the white man who left America and joined the jihad.
It's funny because
calm down, Salahuddin.
But I think it's probably a good idea to hit us up because us being Muslims, they would have found a way to blame us for ISIS or something, and this podcast would cease to exist.
Yeah,
but you get a white Jewish journalist. He's pretty neutral and benign.
Yeah, I think we'd get in trouble.
We'd get in trouble for it, but I think it's just it is what it is. It was just, but it's funny. I listened to this guy. I'm like, you're a white boy from Pennsylvania or Florida. No. And he's got the Arab. You know these cats that become Muslim, they start sounding like Arabs.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude's got an Arab accent now. I'm like, come on, bro. I mean,
Naam.
F1. I was like, yeah, man, it's annoying. Anyway. So, anyways, all right. So, wrap this sucker up.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Help us out on patreon.com / the Mamluks. Alternatively, you can go to themamluks.com / donate and go help us out through PayPal. That's it for us this evening. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.